Hello, my Aloha tribe. Excuse me, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. I don't know what's happening here, but I am a little late, and I'm sorry for all of you who come on live. Excuse me. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this world. Happy midnight somewhere out there. Or I guess in some places it's tomorrow morning already. So happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Good morning, older sibling. Well, hello. I know. You're a bit of a surprise, I admit. When I called, I wasn't sure, but I appreciate it. I do. So yeah, anyways, what is happening in my throat? Lord have mercy. You know what? While I wait for some people to come on, let's just pull a Anywhere travel guide card. But we do have a subject today, and it may get a bit soapboxy, but I implore you to stay on, because I think we're going to cover a lot of good topics and how to really kind of just think for yourself, and make your own decisions without, I like this one. Meeting card. Give someone this card. Good morning, Muddy. I wore the shirt just for you because I know you like it. So, yeah. So, it says, underestimate me. That'll be fun. Anyways, yeah, what should we... Oh, God. This was me in England. It says, brush against a wall. Feel the texture of the wall with your fingers. I kept doing this to all these buildings, and my friend was asking me, he's like, what are you doing? And I was all, I told him, I said, I'm touching buildings that are older than my country. And I said, I'm just kind of digging it right now. So, and he just kind of chuckled, but he's all, that makes sense for you. So even my friends know me very well. They just kind of go with the Shelley flow. So, thank you, older sibling. Yeah, I wore my hair like this last week, and I really liked it. Just kind of pull it up and back and give myself some bangs, and got the, got the colors all in there. And so anyways, keeping it a little light at the beginning because we have a bit of a, I don't know. I don't think it's an intense subject, but it could become an intense subject. So anyways, I do have coffee this morning because I got it yesterday and then didn't drink it. So here we go. So I was going through my phone the other night, and I really wanted to do this subject yesterday, but I promised self-care would be oracles. And we had a good self-care run yesterday. That was pretty awesome. I was very excited about the cards that came out yesterday because they really did kind of point to self-care, and they really did kind of give you ideas and on more than just, physical self-care. It was more of a self-care for your soul, if you will. But as I was looking through my phone on Tuesday, I was just trying to clean stuff out and get rid of things. It's like, God, why do I have all this stuff in here? And so I was getting rid of stuff, and then I realized, I found a quote from Isaac Asimov, and I loved it. And it says, any book worth banning is a book worth reading. So any book worth banning is a book worth reading. And so I decided to title today's subject, Thinking for Yourself. Thinking for yourself. Because there are people out there, I was telling my dad's all, I just don't understand banned books. And I said, it's fear. People are afraid. And they figure if it doesn't align with their beliefs, then, like I said, I have to preface it with this. I know Christians across the board. I know Catholics across the board, which are basically Christians, but, and I'm going to say certain things, but it has nothing to do with the ones I know. Okay. We're going to talk about Christian nationalists. All right, not Christians, Christian nationalists, which is basically they don't even follow the Bible. They just kind of take terms out of there and, whack people with it, and then have no idea what the hell they're talking about. So, or what God's intention probably was. So God will come up from time to time. But the reason I'm saying this is because in certain parts of this country, they have banned the book Harry Potter. It's a kid's book. Okay? And it's because it has spells in it. It has incantations in it. If you really stop and look at it, all of them really seem kind of based. I mean, I'm not sure if she made this language up or not because I don't know Latin. But a lot of these are just Latin. And as a writer, when we want something to feel mystical, we're going to go with Latin. Or something that's a little more ancient, or something ancient like that. And I mean, I'm not sure Latin's that ancient, but it's pretty ancient. And so, it's like, well, they have spells in them. And it's like, oh, woe to you. Woe to you. What a sad, miserable life you must lead. And yes, I'm being judgy. Sounds like it will be a soapbox day. But why? And my dad said, well, that's stupid. And it is. My dad's not a religious man. He is an agnostic atheist. All right. I know you can put those two together any way you want. I've explained it a million times. I'm not explaining it again. It's a hyphen. But yeah, you can put those. And then I told him, I said, yeah, they even banned the Wizard of Oz because it had a witch in it. That's one of the reasons they give, but I don't think that's why. Or the poppy fields, right, where everyone falls asleep because, ooh, hello, opium dens. But it's like, why? Is God the kind of person that you have to be so afraid of, or the kind of being that you have to be so afraid of that you will make everyone else suffer around you just because you think you're going to go to heaven? How you treat other people might be how you get in. Not necessarily what you do. Not by reading a Harry Potter book, not by reading The Wizard of Oz, not by reading The Diary of Anne Frank, not by reading all these different banned books. In fact, I should have done that. I should have looked up some of the banned books that, that are on the list, because it's ridiculous, right? It is absolutely ridiculous. They're all like, well, it has violence in it. Hello, so does the Bible. Last time I looked, Jesus being crucified is not exactly a non-violent act. Whipping him, making him carry a cross up a hill. His own, by the way. Releasing a hooligan, a murderer from jail. Yeah, okay. Let's talk about books, all right? And I'm not trying to put the Bible down because I respect people's beliefs. What I don't respect is when they take the Bible and they do this with it. They hit people with it, right? No, that's not right. I don't think that was what God's intention was, okay? I think God's intention was be nice to it. I think that it's the basic simple rule, right? One of the commandments, do unto others. Do unto others, period. But then we get so afraid and we start pointing fingers in different directions because we can't control things. So then we start banning books. And I'll tell you, I'm one of those people, and I found out there's a term for it, and I can't remember what it was, but there is a term for when you buy books that you don't necessarily read them. That is so me. I'm sorry. Right now I'm looking at books that have been banned. So, let's look this up, because before I get into what I want to talk about, I think it's important for us to really kind of understand some of the books that are on there that it makes no sense. Let's see, in 2026, books that have been banned in 2026. Okay, so books addressing race, LGBTQ plus themes, sexuality, and social justice are among the most frequently banned or challenged in 2026. Why? It says, A Clockwork Orange has been banned 23 times for its violent content and themes of morality. Breathless, banned 20 times, a coming-of-age story dealing with family issues and personal growth. Sold, banned 20 times, depicting the story of a young girl sold into prostitution. Don't we see that on the corners? Why are you trying to hide it? Last Night at the Telegraph Club, banned 19 times, featuring LGBTQ plus themes set in 1950s America. A Court of Mist and Fury, banned 18 times, part of a popular fantasy series with mature content. Looking for Alaska, frequently banned for sexual content and themes of grief. And 19 Minutes, banned for depictions of school violence. Wait, wasn't that the one that was based on one of the school shootings? Why would you ban a book like that? I mean, that should, that, I don't know. To me, that says people should understand so they don't do it. This is a book that people, and I think older sibling, didn't you read 19 Minutes? So these bans disproportionately target books by or about people of color, LGBTQ plus characters, and works that discuss sexual violence or complex social issues. So, by the way, that's kind of what woke is, right? It's fighting social injustice. A lot of people write these books, not because, they have sick, twisted minds. No, because they're putting something out there that, people should be reading, that people should be, understanding and expressing themselves and saying, okay, I'm not the only one that thinks this. Maybe I need some help. Or, wow, what can I do to make this world a better place? Because these thoughts are coming from somewhere. Oh, that's the book she was trying to get me to read. Yeah, I know. It's like, I just sometimes have trouble with that. I mean, I don't know. I know. So, in fact, oh, and Muddy, why would you ban any book? Mind-boggling. The woman here in Atlanta that was on the ban Harry Potter years ago had never even read it. Wow, it was there? I didn't realize it was there. I just remember someone trying to ban it and some libraries actually pulling it. But, yeah, I mean, she never even read it. They were fighting for justice, social justice, and fighting against social injustice by bad people. But you know why, too? There was a different kind of racism in there, right? You had the witches and you had the muggles. And the muggles were the humans or the non-witch magic people, like Hermione. Hermione was a muggle, but she was a witch, and she was actually the smartest out of her 3 friends. I know, without her, they'd probably all be dead several times over. No offense to Harry Potter, but, I can't tell you how many times Hermione saved them. Wow. So Sammy says this was quite a few years ago when they were still being released. Wow. Seriously? I do know that in certain areas, though, they have banned it and they have pulled it from the library shelves, probably running off of that. And that was in the last decade. So who knows if they ever got returned back to the shelves. But, so state level trends. Book bans vary widely by state and district. For example, Utah and South Carolina have statewide no read lists, banning books in all state funded schools and libraries. Makes you want to be a multimillionaire, right? And just open libraries with nothing but banned books. Yeah, and nobody can do anything about it because you run it. Tennessee approved a similar list through implementation was pending. Tennessee approved a similar list, though implementation was pending as of 2025. Yeah, I saw a bad video on Tennessee this morning. Some guy walking around, he might as well have been wearing a hood on his head. And he's a representative. Shame. Florida, Iowa, Texas, and Pennsylvania report higher numbers of district-level bans, often targeting books on race, gender identity, and historical experiences. Now, 3 of those states I get. Pennsylvania, I don't. I mean, Gettysburg is there, right? Anyways, this creates a patchwork of access where a book available to one district may be banned just a few miles away. So I did find something, and I sent it to older sibling and a friend of ours that we have a group chat on. And apparently there is a library that is free, and it's online. So I'm gonna find that, and I'm gonna put that in the comments, okay? Because I think people should have access to all books. So I'm pretty sure 50 Shades of Grey is not found in any of these libraries. And I'm being honest, that should not be in a kid's library, okay? I'm not even sure that should be in the library. I mean, unless you have like a special adult section, like 18 and up kind of section, or 21 and up. We don't want any pregnant 18-year-olds. But the funny thing is a lot of people make fun of that movie, but I really kind of think it was there was a small, tiny sexual revolution that happened amongst, people who just felt like they were so distant from themselves. Women who may have refound their sexuality, people like me who read it and found something totally different about a traumatized person. And you're able to relate to them because you realize the way they shut everybody out is exactly what you do. And you're like, I may need help because I don't want to get that bad. being a billionaire would not be a bad idea, but that part, no. So, so yeah, anyways, I really liked that quote. And so I thought, you know what? It must have been coming. It must have been coming because, oh, here you go. Banned and challenged books. So let's see if we can get this list here. Books updated, except. Okay. Banned books in the U.S. updated February 2026. Oh, Muddy, don't be so mean to yourself. Back in the dark ages when I was in high school, stop it. I took a class on folklore and mythology. When we got our folklore books, our very cool teacher gave us the page numbers of the unacceptable stories that we weren't allowed to read and discuss. He knew good and well that all of us were going to go home that night and read these stories, which is precisely why he told us which ones not to read. I love that. I love that teacher. I love that he did that. So just as a side quest, all right. Oh, how do I get past this? Sorry, just as a side quest. If you ever go to Disneyland, all right, the one in Anaheim. I can't remember if they had this in Thunder Mountain in Florida, but the one in Anaheim, when you're in the queue for Indiana Jones, there is a well, or it looks like a well, but there's a rope, okay, and it says do not touch. This is one of those things, right? In most places, you will never see that because most people know better. But the minute you tell someone not to do something, they're going to do it. And so I remember pulling on the rope because we all knew what it was for. So I remember pulling on the rope and I hear this little girl, mommy, that lady's pulling on the rope and it said, do not touch. And so I looked at the little girl and I'm all, you want to try? And she's kind of looking at her mom like, oh my God. An older sibling was with me. An older sibling just kind of laughing like, she's looking at me like, I am a shit starter and a troublemaker, which is not me. That's usually her. But then they did it. And I told her, I said, this is one of those times when I said, you know how when your mom tells you not to do something, you really want to do it? And she kind of looks at her mom and her mom's nodding like, yeah. And I said, this is one of those things. Cause I said, we all know what not to touch, right? So they're telling you not to touch it because they know you're going to want to. And of course you can hear the guy falling and doing all this kind of rattling stuff inside. And so, I mean, it was one of those magical Disney moments where you just made a kid's day because their mom gave them permission to do something they weren't supposed to do. But that story that Muddy just told reminded me of that. And I love that your teacher did that. It's like, oh, you cannot read those unacceptable stories. And everybody goes home. And you know what? Here's the best part, right? He got them to read. Everyone's going to miss that point. They're going to be like, oh, shame on him. All these people that might watch this later if they even got this far after me calling out the Christian nationalists. But anyways, if they got this far, they'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe that, blah, blah, blah. He got them to read. He got them to open a book and read. Okay. Come on. Seriously. I mean, the class was offered. So anyways, here's some interesting ones. Okay, so here's some books, that have been banned. And, websites like bookshop.org, Libby for library ebooks, and local indie bookstores can help you obtain these titles while supporting free expression and literature. So the 1619 Project, I have no idea what this is about. 1984, we all know what that's about. The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. All American Boys, All Boys Aren't Blue. Animal Farm. Wow, really? I read that in grade school. Oh, The Bell Jar. Wow, The Bell Jar, really? Oh, because it deals with certain subjects. I actually have that book at home. I was halfway through it and then I came here and forgot about it. So now I got to start it all over again. Beyond Magenta, Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, Catcher in the Rye. That one I feel like has been banned since I was a kid. And I don't get why. Probably because it deals with, mental health stuff. And I think that's something that we should actually focus on as opposed to not focus on. The Color Purple, Brave New World, Crank, Drama, Eleanor and Park, Fahrenheit 451. I mean, these are some of them in here are classics by, respected. I mean, well, they're all respected authors because, I mean, they're out there publishing stuff. But I mean, authors that have since come and gone. The Handmaid's Tale. Are we shocked that that's on the banned list? No, we're not, because that's the direction we seem to be going in. A very dystopian one. Genderqueer, a memoir. The Grapes of Wrath. What the hell? I love it. Muddy says one of the bookstores a friend and I went to recently has a shelf with the monthly banned books for sale. Love it. Yeah, and in La Mesa, out here in San Diego, there's another place called Meet Cute. I think it's called Meet Cute, but it's cute. It has all kinds of books. It has like what they call fairy smut. I know. See, can't even. Seriously, I'm like a child. I'm sorry. There we go. Anyway. But they have all kinds of books, LGBTQ, they're not biased towards gender or race. And they have lots of fairy smut. Yep. Anyway, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So, those are just some of the books. Some of these books are classics, and some of them may end up being classics one day, but some of these books like predate me. Why? That's what I don't understand is why. And you know why? Here's the word. Fear. F-E-A-R. Fear. And the second biggest word. Control. C-O-N-T-R-O-L. Yes, I can spell. Now you know that. But fear and control. That's what it all is. That's one of the reasons why The Handmaid's Tale was banned. Because it teaches people how to rise up, right? I never read it. I'm being honest. I never read it and I never watched the show. Because that kind of stuff used to scare me. Oh yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird is banned. And I don't understand that one at all. Neither does Muddy. Muddy's all To Kill a Mockingbird is banned, and I don't understand that one at all. I don't either. Except that it was a white man trying to defend a black man who actually did not do anything. Got him off, but he still ended up being killed. So I don't think it's banned for the actual subject matter. I think it's banned because of the final action that people took anyway. Oh, and I'm sorry if you haven't read that book yet. It was a very good book. I really liked it, and I actually, it was one of the things I had to read in high school during our English, well, not English lit, but, during English class. English literature was actually British literature. So it was proper English literature, but in English we did have to read books, and one of them was To Kill a Mockingbird, and then I saw the movie and I fell in love with Gregory Peck. So anyways, who doesn't love Gregory Peck? Seriously. So yeah, and that one's kind of blowing my mind right now. And also, if you ever want to see a very young Robert Duvall, rest in peace, yeah, go check out that movie. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but you'll see him. You'll see him eventually. But yeah, it was a very good book. It's not a very long read, so it's not like it's going to take you days and months to read it unless you're a super slow reader, which is okay. If you pick up a page every day and put it down, that's fine. You do you. Okay? But reading is important. Reading is knowledge. And that's why some of these books get banned. Reading is knowledge. But of course, I'm sure in some of these places you can go and get the president's son's book, How My Family Saved America. No. That's fiction. That should be put in fiction. Science fiction. But anyway. So I wanted to talk about something that I saw last week, and this is kind of what, this is kind of where I got the idea, but then it didn't really hit my brain until I saw the Isaac Asimov quote, which again is any book worth banning is a book worth reading. And yes, I'm going to talk about the Waltons again, so bear with me. For a 70s show, I was telling Sibling this last night. I said for a 1970s show, they really touched on a lot of good topics. And they really kind of pointed out a lot of the behaviors of the day. Like in a recent episode, Todd Bridges was in it. He played a runaway boy, and he was hiding in the barn, but he would catch fish to kind of earn his keep. But then he fell in love with the father because, the father was just like the father. His parents died when he was young. Then he was sent to live with his grandmother, and then his grandmother died. And then he was sent to a home And that was not really a proper place for a kid who, you know, had all this family love and everything. And he didn't like it, so he ran away. Okay. And I mean, he didn't just run away. I mean, he left North Carolina and went to Virginia. And I don't know how far that is, but to walk, damn. But anyways, so, you know, so then, you know, they knew, because he was, you know, he was an African American boy. They're like, we would love to keep you, but we can't. And because it wouldn't just be hard for them, it would be hard for him as their child. So he brought him to the home nearby in Jefferson County and, in their county, and he ran away again and popped back up at the house. So finally he goes to talk to their neighbor, an African-American woman, Verdi. And, you know, Verdi said, well, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my husband, blah, blah, blah. But even the little boy's he's all, I don't understand, Mr. John, why I can't stay with you. You know, and he's all like, maybe in another time, because he's all, I would love for you to stay with us. But he's all, right now, it's just not possible. You know, maybe in another time, another place, maybe in a few years, a few decades. And I was just thinking about that. And I'm just like, why? Why? The Civil War ended like 161 years ago. And we are still fighting the same fights we're fighting now. And it's not just, you know, it's fear and control. You know, or like in The Help, right, with Hilly, separate but equal. Bullshit, separate but equal, my ass. That's just your way of atoning for your sins. That phrase, separate but equal. That's you trying to make yourself feel better and thinking you're going to go to heaven because you're saying separate but equal. While God is sitting there going, you got a big surprise when you get up here. And I told my dad that. I said, I know you don't believe in God. And I said, I know a lot of people who don't believe in God. And I have a few that I believe in. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have a few places I might be able to go. But, but that being said, I told my dad, I said, you know, when we watch this show sometimes, because, you know, their behaviors don't align with a Christian value. Some of the people, like, you know, you always have to have a heavy in the show, right? That just kind of makes you roll your eyeballs, because you kind of need that for the balance. It's like spicing it up a little bit. And I was just like, boy, they sure got a big surprise coming to them when they get to heaven. He's like, well, I don't believe in heaven, but it's like, you know, but I said, well, you know, that my point is that they're like, oh, well, we're going to go, and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just kind of like, yeah. So anyways, oh, and Buddy says, oh yeah, about To Kill a Mockingbird. I think everyone should read it or watch the movie. It's a great movie. Heart face, or a little heart with Gregory Peck. Yes, we love Gregory Peck. Big hearts. Heart eyes. Heart eyes. I remember, I think he's buried at the Catholic Church just off of the 101 in LA. And it's the big one that they built in the last 20 something years. And my mom was so funny, you know, so my mom and her friend, I think it was her friend, or was it Auntie Angie? I don't remember, but mom, I know, but mom, mom went with a group, and they did the church tour and everything, and then they went down into the catacombs, and Gregory Peck is buried down there. And she's all like, she's all, I got a picture of Gregory Peck's grave, and I touched it for you. I'm like, what? And I said, he's buried there? And she's all, yeah, we weren't supposed to go because it was behind the ropes, but I snuck away and I went in anyway. Just like, rebel. Okay. I mean, she is literally rebelling in the you know, the basement of the Catholic Church. If I would have done that, she'd been like, Shelley Marie. But, yeah, but you know, I mean, I guess that's as close as they'd ever get, right? But I thought that was so sweet. And then she touched my hand. I'm like, seriously? Like, you've taken like 5 showers since then. But I think she gave me a copy of the picture too. I can't remember. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere in my house. But yeah, Muddy, yay, mom. So I was just kind of like, mother? My mother? The rebel. So, you know, maybe that's where I get it from. I always thought it was from my dad, but I think it might be from my mom. She was slippery. You had to watch her sometimes. But anyways, so the reason I brought up the Waltons is because 2 seasons ago, I think, Dad and I are binge watching, so everything just kind of blurs together. But as you know, the Waltons takes place it starts in the 30s, and they start moving in to the 40s. And so, of course, you know, they're going to move into World War II. And there was big talk about Hitler's book, and I'm not going to name it, because if you know it, you know it. If you don't, I'm not putting it out there. That's my banned book, because that is a book that should be banned. But it isn't, right? Because freedom of speech. But of all these books I see on this list, that's the one that should be on it. But surprisingly, it's not, right? It wasn't a book, it was a manifesto. And it was a manifesto that he basically made happen. Because of fear and control. Fear and control. Hate your neighbor. We're going to badmouth our immigrants. We're going to do all these things. And he learned to control them. And he started banning books, and they started book burning. They've had book burning bonfires, right? And so John Boy, who is the oldest of the Walton's children, he, named after his father, that's why they call him John Boy. So John Boy wanted to print a chapter of Mein Kampf in his newspaper, because he ran his own little newspaper. Sorry, my coffee. And everybody started getting all up in arms. Now, he didn't want to do it because he liked Hitler. He hated Hitler. He absolutely despised him. But he wanted people to understand why they needed to worry. And so he had a neighbor come over, Flossie Brimmer. Flossie Brimmer ran the boarding house. And she told him that, I'm a little concerned about you posting this, or, printing this. And she's all, my husband and I are German. Or, well, her husband had since passed, but she's all, my husband and I moved to the mountain to get away from everybody, because after World War I, life became very hard for us because we were German. And of course, Mrs. Brimmer didn't sound German anymore. And, because they had moved, because, they wanted a better life. They moved to America, but it wasn't easy for them because they were German. Her husband still had the thick German accent. And they even had a later episode where her brother-in-law comes out, and he's very, thick accented. And of course, now you're in the thick of the war, and not quite into Pearl Harbor yet, but everyone's like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. So the racism starts, right? Now, these are people living on our soil, clearly trying to get out of there. But of course, they're not seeing that. They're just automatically filled with fear. Like, oh my God, they're going to send them to our mountain. We're going to have problems, blah, blah, blah. Because that's what Hitler wanted. He wanted fear and control. And so by banning things and by burning books, he did that. He didn't want people reading, about the world outside. He didn't want people having a conscience by reading, by saying, oh, wait, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Because he wanted full control and power. And that's why people banned books. Now, granted, these are all just my opinions, but if you sit around a table with a bunch of people who do not agree with banning books, and you ask them why they think these books are being banned, they're going to tell you it's about fear and control. On what planet does an LGBTQ plus person disturb your life? I'm just curious. Because 60 years ago, a black person couldn't walk into a bakery and order a cake unless it was a black bakery, right? And so they'd be turned away. You may have this person over here that's one of the best bakers in the world, and they want that cake, but they're all, sorry, I don't have to serve you. And that's all we did. We just moved it right into the LGBTQ people. You don't have to agree with someone's choices. It's still a business. You're not going to hell for it. You may go to hell for, or you may go to purgatory. We'll just say purgatory, because I think hell's reserved for very special bad people. But, you may not get to heaven right away. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being honest. None of us are perfect. I can't walk around and say I'm perfect. I am absolutely not perfect. I am perfectly imperfect. I could be having the best day and being in the best mood, then I get in the car and some moron gets in. See, look, I can't even talk about it without saying something like that. Some moron gets in front of me, is like, rah, 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 rah. Every swear word comes out of my mouth because they almost hit me and I panicked. I'm not perfect. I don't want to be perfect. I think it's boring. I used to try to be perfect and it was so boring. But, and I look back at that now, and I look back at a lot of different things. It's like, I'm a very sarcastic person, and my dad takes everything I say seriously. I don't think he means to, but that's how I was when I was growing up. I was very serious. I was very nose to the grindstone. And it was because I was just holding so much in and hiding so much. But it's about fear and control. Granted, it is your right to turn away business. Okay. And I don't think, and I think that, if you know a bakery is not going to serve you, I don't think you should be tempting that fate either. I mean, that's just me. And I get the point that people are trying to make. Well, they should serve everybody. I do get the point that they're trying to make, but it's like, you're just going in there trying to stir up trouble. Just go to support your people, not your people like that, but it's like, don't support this person over here who's a bigot of any sort. They think that just because, they don't, just because they love people of every color, but they'll turn their back on an LGBTQ person, they just automatically think that, oh, well, I'm not a bigot. No, that's bigotry. Bigotry is, basically being a racist or being bigoted towards somebody or an idea, basically. Let's look up that term, all right? Let's look it up to make it official. But, anyways, in the Waltons episode, okay, wait, let's look at, okay, bigot. A person who is obstinately or unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction, especially one who is prejudiced against or antagonistic toward a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. So there you go. You can love every color of the world and still be a bigot. Yeah, because again, how does their life affect you? You're just making a cake. All right. But that's that's a whole other thing. You know what? I wouldn't even support those people. Then those people complained because they lost business. Because other people didn't want to go to them. Because, well, these people, complained about us and sued us for not going. And now we've lost business. No, you lost business because you chose to turn your back on somebody. And yes, I get it. It was a religious belief. But come on, seriously, even the Catholic Church, Pope Francis was awesome. He's like, I don't care what their orientation is as long as they're going to church. And he caught a lot of flack for that. Because he was going against outdated ideas. I know gay people who go to church. I know a gay woman who went to church. I mean, she's since passed on, loved her to death. Absolute beautiful human. But she couldn't, it was almost like it was an open secret, in her church. But she never came out because she was so afraid she wouldn't be able to, go back into that church. And I just wish that she had been able to live. She was very up there in age when she passed. But gosh, I wish she would have been able to be around when Pope Francis was around. Because then she could have just been who she wanted to be instead of having to hide it. What people do behind their doors, don't worry about it. If they're holding hands in public, don't look, okay? If it bothers you that much. But just stop. Stop being that way. It's dumb. It's dumb. And this is one of the things that goes along with banning books. Because they're banning books that don't allow you to see other walks of life. Just that one particular road that they want you to be on. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to think outside the box. Yeah, she was out to, older sibling reminded me, she was out to close friends. No, we knew that. We knew she was out to close friends. But for the most part, yeah, she kept it hidden because her whole life, being an older person, she had to hide it for years and years and decades, And why? Why? Because two people love each other? You're not marrying the body, you're marrying the soul, right? Because this is going to change. This is going to change. But yeah, I would boycott those places. No offense. I mean, if they can boycott other people, then, I can too. I guess that would kind of make me a bigot too, because I am antagonistic towards a certain group of people. But I'd like to think I'm a bigot on the right side of history. Thank you very much. But I guess, if you're going to call a spade, there you go. But yeah, I mean, at the same time too, I kind of feel like they were challenging that on purpose. And it's kind of like, that's really not right either. I mean, I get why. I get why. But it's like, you know what? I would support the people who support me. I'd go to the bakery that says, yeah, I would love to make your cake. And I'm going to put all kinds of love and pride into it and everything. And that was an old case. But, I mean, I would support the people who care about me. Yeah, I know. And that's true. Older sibling said because she was a musician and the public wasn't ready. But that's my point. I don't think we should live in a world where somebody needs to be ready because someone's in love with someone who, is the same gender as they are. That's stupid. And I admit I was born in kind of that middle era, right? Where it's kind of like everything really started unfolding before us in the right direction, although we're going in the wrong direction right now, but everything started unfolding for us in the right direction. And so, I think that's why there are moments when I get a little bit more soapboxy, because I can't understand what it's like to be some of the people out there that have had to suffer the things that they've had to suffer, that have had to go through the things they've had to go through. But I have seen the LGBT community trying to fight for their own rights, trying to fight for their own civil rights, because they deserve them. They won their case when the Stonewall plaque and flag were taken down from in front of the Stonewall establishment. They had to be put back up, by the way. Yes, thank you. So, and why? Why are people afraid of gay people? I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Why are they even more afraid of trans people? I mean, you see more men right now who are preachers getting arrested for being indecent, which is the same thing you're blaming immigrants and gay people for, right? And so, in some cases, people of color. But, excuse me, anyone paying attention to that part of the book? No. And why? Here's the thing. Books teach us to expand our mind. They give us ideas. They give us hope. There are some books that, I think are out there that, could turn the person in the wrong direction. But for the majority of people, they'll be like, we got to do something to make sure this doesn't happen again. Like the book 19 Minutes, right? And I guess at some point I probably should read it, but, wait, I'm sorry. Something is, it's a bird. I thought it was a dog on the street. It's a bird in the tree. Anyways, sorry. Anyways, so yeah, where was I going with that? Brain fog. Yeah, so they teach us. They teach us how to think for ourselves, how to, they inspire us. They warn us of what could happen. Look at the book 1984. It's been banned. That book was written way before 1984. And of course, 1984 is 42 years ago now. But look what's happening. Everything in that book is starting to come to pass. We have to learn to think for ourselves. This is why books are important. And sometimes books are made into movies. Now, the one thing I loved about To Kill a Mockingbird is that it pretty much followed the book. It pretty much followed the process of the book. Not a lot of changes. So what you get in the movie is basically what you're going to get in the book. But I still think you should read the book. It is a good book. And it makes you think, because it takes you back to a time where people weren't equal, where people were condemned just for the color of their skin. And unfortunately, we're kind of sinking back into those times. And we don't want to be there. We don't want to be there. See, they separate you by instilling fear in you. They're going to take your jobs. They're going to hurt your families. They're going to rape your children. They're going to do all these things. They're going to do all kinds of bad things. And so then you start looking at your neighbor a little bit more suspiciously, right? Sound familiar? They start banning books. They start burning them because they don't want you to think. Sound familiar? They start doing things to fill your mind with anger and to start turning you away from your neighbor. Sound familiar? I'm sorry. Does this sound like 1938, 39 Germany? Even the Germans warned us this could happen in our country. And people didn't listen because they fell for the great lie. They fell for a big lie. So the reason I wanted to bring up the Waltons episode, I already told you about Mrs. Brimmer being German and whatnot. Well, the preacher and the mayor of the town decided, well, we can't have this. We don't, if they're going to burn our books, we're going to burn their books. And, it was stupid, right? I mean, they were just books that were translated into German. They weren't the nasty Hitler book, just books translated into German. And so they have all these books on there, and John Boy's like, what are you doing? He's all, why are you doing this? And they're all, well, John Boy, we have to make sure that this doesn't enter our community, and we don't want any part of this, and we don't want this, and we don't want that, and we don't want those nasty Germans in here, and yada, yada, yada. And it was like, so John Boy goes over to the pile of books next to the fire, because they're about to burn these books, all right? They're about to do the same thing Hitler did in Germany. They're about to burn these books. And, you know, he picks one up and he sees what it is, because they don't care. They're just seeing German words on it. So he picks it up, he opens it, and he says, does anybody here speak German? And he looks at Mrs. Brimmer, and Mrs. Brimmer pulls on her courage, because she asked John Boy to keep this a secret. It's like, dude, you just outed her, okay? I mean, she's afraid for her life now for about 5 seconds. And so she goes over there, and he's all, will you read this? So she starts reading the first the first paragraph in this book. And it's in German, and she's speaking it with perfect German. And everybody, you can see the preacher starting to get mad. You can see the mayor starting to get mad. You can see the crowd get a little bit restless that's around the bonfire. And you can see them getting angry, and, you know, just like, because it's in German, right? Because they're just hearing German. Then John Boy says, Mrs. Brimmer, can you translate that into English? It was the first paragraph of the Bible. In the beginning. I couldn't quote the rest of it because I may have grown up Catholic, but oops. Not too in tune to the Bible. But I had a very unique upbringing because, you know, again, atheist over there, atheist agnostic, and a Catholic mother, very, very Catholic. I mean, these two are on polar opposite ends, but my father grew up in a very, very hardcore religion. I don't want to say who because I don't want to offend anybody, but and so he knew the Bible back and forth. He really did. He is the one who knows the Bible back and forth. He knew it better than my mother. He knew it better than me. I don't think he can quote it anymore like he could when he was younger and when I was younger, but he knew. And he knew everything in there from cover to cover. He had to read that book because of the religion he belonged to, and because my grandmother was so fanatical about it. But anyways, all of a sudden their faces just kind of drop, because this is a very heavily Baptist community, right? In this TV show, and they were about to burn the Bible just because it had German words on it. And this is what I'm talking about. When we follow a group of people and we don't think for ourselves, we put everything in danger. Ourselves, our country, the people around us. We put our neighbors in danger because they may not look like, you know, one or the other of us. I can't really say me, right? Because you can tell I'm some kind of mixed breed. And that's fine. I like being a half-breed. But I'm really not a half-breed. I'm more of a mixed breed. That's why Muddy and I call each other Muddies, because we're like mutts, all right? But, or Heinz 57, or Global, or whatever you want to. We're like the UN, okay? We are literally walking UN people. But, you know, because they don't look like certain people, all of a sudden we're going to start doing this. That's what they did to the Jews. They broke them down, they wore them down, then they basically starved them in a ghetto overfilled with people, because that's how they learned to control them. That's how they controlled them. All because of one tiny little man's hate and anger. So eventually in the show, and they haven't started talking about this part yet, and I don't know if they ever will, but this is how narrow-minded the United States became. After World War II, because of the way Japan handled the bombing of Pearl Harbor, sending their two advocates to the White House, you know, and kind of, they made them a pawn in a chess game. And it seemed kind of unfair to me that these two guys were kind of put in the line of fire in a way. But you know, they knew what was going to happen, and they had to distract. You know, while you're looking here, something else is happening over there. Yeah, see, Sammy likes it. We are the UN. We are totally the UN. We are the United Nations the United Nations of Muddy. So anyways, so what did we do? We rounded up all of our Japanese people, including the ones that were born here on American soil. And some of them were a couple generations in. And we put them in camps. And at first, you know, if you're ever in California, or look up the camps, because the camps are kind of all over the country. All right, we didn't put the Germans in there. All right, we didn't put the Germans in camps. But we put the Japanese people in camps. And a couple of years ago, Dad and I went on a really good tour of some of the national parks in California. And the first one we stopped at was Manzanar. And Manzanar is in California. It's in Southern California. Kind of, you're getting towards Central California in a way. But we stopped in Manzanar, and I had the privilege, but also it was a bittersweet privilege of being able to look up somebody I know who was there. It is my friend's mom, and her family was sent there. And I believe Miss Dorothy was born here, I believe. But her parents were from Japan, if I remember correctly. But Miss Dorothy was born here, my friend was born here. And I found her in there, and I took pictures of it, and I was crying. And my dad's like, "Are you okay?" And, I could hear somebody, listening nearby. And I just remember, because when you're walking around in there, it's a museum, and you sit there and you shake your head and you're like, wow, how could we do this to people? But when you know somebody who has been there, when you know someone who had to be stuck in there for several years, you're just, it blows your mind. And the person heard my dad and I talking. I said, I can't believe Miss Dorothy was here. I can't believe we did this to them. Because one of the things they say in the video when you're watching, they're all like, well, why are we here? And he's all, well, it's for your own protection. And the gentleman said to the soldier, well, then why are the guns pointing in? Now, to go back to the Walton show, the episode where I said Mrs. Brimmer's, brother-in-law comes out to visit, they treated him the same way. Oh, well, he's a kraut, and he's a this, and he's a that, and they got a shortwave radio. It was little bits of information that were misunderstood and turned into propaganda to the point where they came in a truckload to take this guy away. And of course, Mr. Walton said, I don't think so. He's like, you guys need to stop and think about all this. You're being idiots, without saying they're being idiots, right? But it's true. And this is what banning books does to us. We lose a moral compass in a way. And you may not think so, because a lot of us don't read books, but a lot of us, we read other things. And in fact, I have a really good book right here that I'm reading right now. It's called Lions at Lamb House. And it's a fictional account of Henry James meeting up with Sigmund Freud, courtesy of Henry James' brother, William, who was also a psychotherapist, but I don't think he ever practiced. He was more into the writing about it and stuff like that, but and the research and whatnot. But it opens your, if you find a banned book, if you find a book that's been banned, I advise you to read it. You may not like it. You don't have to like it. I'm not going to force you to read something you don't want to read. But books open our mind to ideas. Right? The Bible is a book. Are you going to ban that? No. Why? Because that's the one that all the people banning books are banning books because of. But there is war, there is violence, there's even sex in the Bible. Okay? There are all these things that they're saying are in this. And if you want to go to an atheist point of view, the Bible is meant to control people. It is meant to keep people in line. It is meant to be, but if you want to go into the way my mom said, she's all, no, I think it's more of a guidebook. What we should and shouldn't do. And I like that way of her thinking. It was a guidebook. It's what we should and shouldn't be doing. Sometimes she would go a little too far and say, well, in the Bible it says. It's like, please don't preach the Bible to me about that. Come on. There's stories in a book. God doesn't want you to go out there and hate someone. God doesn't want you to deny services to somebody. If you truly believe that God doesn't make mistakes, then don't be mad at the transgender person. Because did it ever occur to you, if you do follow God, maybe God put them here to make you think about yourself? Maybe he says, I'm going to pick a very special group of people, and I'm going to make them realize who they are, and to require gender reassignment. Because I want those negative people out there to think. Doesn't mean God made a mistake. Maybe the mistake is that you're not seeing them. Right? And that's coming from a religious point of view. That's just coming from a religious point of view. I do believe in reincarnation. I really do. And sometimes I think they're just people who were probably, you know, a certain sex in their past life or one of their best lives. And maybe they just didn't get the juice that said, whoops, we forget about our past lives. And maybe they just identified so much with that life that was like their perfect time for them. And that's who they want to be again. But that doesn't mean God made a mistake. They never said God made a mistake. But I'm going to put that question to you now. How do you know God didn't put them here to challenge your thinking? I think it's fair to think about. We used to watch the show with Jazz Jennings. Love her. She knew from a child that she was always meant to be a girl. Her brother is such a huge advocate. I follow him on Instagram. I follow them both on Instagram, but they're huge advocates. But it's like, you know, you wonder, you know, what would it have been like if she wasn't? Would they still have these same pathways? But because she had a show and because you got to watch this little girl grow up into a woman, you start thinking differently. You start seeing, hey, she's still just a human being. You know? So maybe that's the point. Books are here to challenge how you think. Books are here to inspire you to think for yourself. They're not here to make you gay. They're not here to make you change colors, you know, I don't know, like a chameleon, like we can just spontaneously change colors. They're not here to create a violent you. They're here to warn us or to teach us, but more so to teach us. They're here to show us a path. And when we ban these books, when we ban any book across the board, we're doing a disservice, not just to other people, but you're actually kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because you know what? You are going to find those group of rebels who are going to say, we're going to put this out there and we want everyone to read it. And people may have never even heard of the book, but now it's up there in being read because you decided to ban it. You chose to ban a book because of your own fear, your own insecurities, and your own bigoted hatred. And because of that, it's getting new life. So think about that for a while. Sometimes books go unnoticed until you ban them, and then everybody wants to read them. So, you know, it's just another form of hatred. It's just another form of control. And I think it's stupid. And yes, I'm going to say that, okay? I think it's stupid. I think people who ban books are just ridiculous. I do. Because it's either out of fear or it's out of control. And sometimes it's to create fear and control. But I mean, seriously, what kind of spell can a kid do from a Harry Potter book? I mean, Jesus Christ, seriously. Anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. We really need to think about the way we do things. Oh, here we go. This is something I wrote at the very bottom. When we hate without context or doing our own homework, but instead choose to just trust someone's hate speech, we are doing a disservice to ourselves, our fellow humans, and this country. So I'll read that one more time, you know, now that I can read my writing. When we hate without context or doing our own homework, but instead choose to just trust someone's hate speech, we are doing a disservice to ourselves, our fellow humans, and this country. I love how profound I can be sometimes. I know. I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one, because I almost missed that. But yeah, so, you know, let's think about that for a while. Do your own homework. Ask ourselves why somebody up there in the White House is constantly saying, oh, they're hateful, they're not patriotic, they're this, they're that, they're this, they're that. And then go to your friends who see you and then just automatically think that. All right. So again, have a great day, everybody. Oh, thank you, Muddy. Thank you, and love you both too. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll see you back here Monday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. You can catch me across the board on social media, and I hope you have a safe and wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful day.